So this is the Focal Azurys, and this headphone actually really surprised me and has quickly become not only one of my favorite Focals, but one of my favorite closed-back headphones at any price. It's insanely good. One of the reasons this surprised me was because this is based off of the Focal Batiste wireless headphone. This one's wired. And I didn't love that headphone very much. I haven't heard the latest tuning updates to it that you can apparently use on their software, but I didn't love that headphone. But this headphone I think is incredible. Now, this video was sponsored by Headphones, but I'm gonna give you my unfiltered opinion about this thing. I'm gonna tell you everything it's good at, its limitations, and I'm also gonna have a fresh take from Courtney on what she thinks of this headphone as a non-headphone person. We're gonna have comparisons, a whole bunch of different stuff. I hope you stick around. This video was made possible by headphones.com, but they're not paying or asking me to say anything good or bad about this headphone. All thoughts and opinions, like always, are my own. If you do wanna check out any of the headphones that we talk about today, I would recommend checking them out at headphones.com. I'll drop a link down below. They are a high quality online retailer with excellent customer service, reward points, and a really reliable store. So again, check them out down below. Huge thanks for sponsoring today's episode. The build and construction, as said, was based off of the Batiste chassis, but because they don't have the amplifier and DAC receiver for the Bluetooth on that headphone, they've actually reduced the weight by about 50 grams. So now this is only 306 grams, which is pretty light. It's also really comfortable, and compared to other Focal headphones, it's a bit smaller of a profile on your head, though I do think it does a pretty good job of clearing your ears. And this will depend user to user, but this is actually the most comfortable Focal headphone to me. It fits my head just a lot better than previous Focals have. The cups do swivel, the ear pads are nice. They kind of make a bit of noise, but like once they're kind of settled on your head, you don't really hear it. There's no noise cancellation. This is not an active noise cancellation headphone. If you want noise cancellation in Bluetooth, the Batiste is available, but it does do an okay job of sealing for a closed back headphone, though it's not the best I've heard. It's not terrible either. Now the overall construction, it is a little bit more consumery than its higher end brothers and sisters because it just has a fairly heavy use of plastic, and you can kind of feel that. But the comfort benefits to me are just definitely worth the small sacrifice in build quality, which I don't even know if is a sacrifice at all, really. It's just slightly different and a little bit more of what I would expect from like a company like Bose than a company like Focal. Though that doesn't mean it won't last. Just an observation. The color I actually really like a lot. I'm kind of tired of just seeing black headphones. I do think that their headiness looks better, and I prefer the looks of that one, but I don't think this looks bad either, though Courtney didn't like it. Regarding efficiency, this is just fine off of a laptop or a phone. It's pushing the phone to its limits, I think, but the laptop output was just fine. I did play this on a number of different amps, but you really don't notice much of a difference between something like this and something like a higher end amp. So it's not gonna scale with really nice gear very well, but that's kind of a benefit, especially for a mobile-based closed back headphone like this. So you can play this with pretty much anything. Now the overall sound quality is fun, easy, and technical all at the same time, wrapped in a comfortable package. And I actually love it. I really, really like the sound quality of this. In fact, I like this a lot better than some of the recent closed back headphones we reviewed, like the Lyric 2. I also think I prefer the tuning, even though it's not as good technically. I think I prefer the tuning over the E3. So this to me as a closed back contender is like no joke. This is a very, very good closed back headphone. The fun part is the bass, mostly because of how much quantity there is, but also with how much quality there is to go along with that quantity. I want as much bass impact and volume as I can hear without sacrificing on quality. And this offers a ton of bass quantity and a ton of bass quality to go along with it. One of the benefits over something like the Beyerdynamic DT1770 Pro, which is a closed back headphone about the same price, is the bass cleanliness and where the bass increases and where it lays kind of dormant and lets other sounds not be impeded by it. So it's got really good sub bass performance, like 20 to 40, 60 hertz is incredibly good. It hits you with this awesome amount of impact. You can like really feel the impact. It doesn't feel dead or stale at all. I like it a lot. And there's a good amount of mid bass, but the mid bass is very clean. And I really like how clean it is because it doesn't impede on the lower mid-range or the mid-range. It just kind of, you hear it, it's strong, it's impactful when it needs to be, but it's so clean and not boxy at all that everything else just kind of flows through it in an unobstructed way. One of the only disadvantages I see for this headphone is the fact that it's closed. This affects the total width of the soundstage, but this also can affect things like the bass response. Let's take the Focal Clear as a comparison, the OG, the one I prefer. The OG Clear will have a better kind of room and scale information to the bass. The bass will not hit as hard. It won't seem as thumpy and as solid, but it will provide a better kind of scale to the bass. So something that is producing a really large scale bass sound will sound larger scale than it will on this, but the impact of this is greater than that. It's a lot thumpier and deeper, and I think even has better texture than that of the Clear, but the Clear is a little bit more informative, if that makes sense. Now, one thing with the bass response that I'm glad they seemingly have fixed on this new Azurys is the bass popping. So if you didn't know and you haven't been following it, Focal headphones for a while now have had issues where if you play a really hard-hitting bass song at high volumes, some of their headphones would have like a popping sound where the driver would literally be hitting its excursion limit and you'd hear it kind of slapping against the chassis. This was not pleasant. Now, I tried my best to push this headphone as hard as I could with some hard-hitting bass songs, and I could not replicate the issue. So as far as this unit, I haven't had any issues with this. So big plus for them fixing that. The easy part of the listening here is the mid-range. This leans a little bit on the warmer side. Compared to previous Focals, this is a little bit warmer than most of the vocalists will hit. And I feel like open back headphones have a big advantage here of being a little bit more natural through a lot of the vocal range. But I think compared to closed back headphones, me and Courtney, for example, both tried this directly against the Lyric 2. And we prefer the vocals out of this, even though on a technical level, they may not be as good. I think on a kind of just a listening enjoyment perspective, they're a little bit better. The timbre is not what I would consider neutral, but it is very pleasing and enjoyable. Two potential technical faults here. Sometimes on certain vocalists, I'd say maybe 1 out of 10, you'll hit something that sounds a little bit like a veil in the upper mid-range. They don't come across as unbridled as they perhaps should. This wasn't an issue for everybody, but on certain vocalists, you'll kind of see this issue repeating. Adele, Sam Smith, two good examples of when this happens a lot. There's also potential concerns for both the region of 4K and the rest of the treble response, which seems to depend heavily on the amount of compression on the pads. So these are two different measurements, one taken on a 5128, one taken on a 4128, and both had slightly different levels of compression on the pads. And you can see the difference in the treble response. Now, how this is affecting me and how it will affect you, it's really hard to say. I'm just gonna list this as user experience will vary. And I also think as pads wear down and as the headband gets a little bit weaker over time, this might vary a little bit as well. This isn't a concern that's only existing on this headphone, but it was notable as two differences in some of the measurements that headphones got. Now, bass was the fun part, mid-range was the easy part, and treble response is the technical part. Because even though this is what I would consider a more easy and pleasing listening headphone, the treble response kind of comes back with a vengeance and hits you with a surprising amount of technicality here. And this is something that I didn't feel like I was getting a lot from the Batiste. And this is a feature of this headphone that I actually really, really enjoy. The first song you listen to on this will have a very obvious sense of clarity to it. And that is directly due to the treble response. It's very clear in a way that is unobstructed and doesn't kind of shine or scream at you, but it has a lot of details, but they're not forced down your throat. So some Headphone closebacks, for example, will have a lot of details. They might even be more detailed, but they're so forward that they're not really that enjoyable. This takes a slightly more laid back approach, but it doesn't feel under detailed in almost any of the regions except for those upper mid-range areas that I kind of talked about. Now, imaging and soundstage, the imaging is really good. It's shockingly good, actually. It's one of the better ones at this price for even open back headphones. It's very, very precise. Soundstaging is where you will see its limitations. The stage and precision of stuff is awesome, but the scale, especially on the outer bounds, is restricted by it being a closed back headphone. But surprisingly, to me, that is like the only real downside I've run into with this being closed back. And in most circumstances, it doesn't even sound like a closed back headphone actually. The typical downfalls of a closed back headphone, such as like echoey treble response or shiny treble response or glary treble response or bloated bass or a dead mid-range or a overly bright mid-range that sounds like hollow. None of those characteristics exist in this. So somehow they've navigated that minefield and basically created just a really, really good headphone that I don't personally have any major faults with. It has limitations like every headphone does, but there's nothing that's really causing me to be like, yeah, don't buy it because of this. This is a very Very good headphone. But still, if you're into super wide sound staging stuff, open backs are probably gonna be your cup of tea, not closed backs. Now with Courtney, I like bringing her in and listening to this stuff because she gives such like a unique kind of untainted like take on headphones. Like sometimes she says stuff that I didn't even think to listen for, but she's listening for it. She has this really unbridled and blunt approach to like listening to this stuff, and I really like her opinion on this thing. And it seems like you guys do as well. So she hates introductions, so here's Courtney.
Your fans love me, Joshua. Okay. I'm gonna start with the black hair. Yeah, they look nicer. Okay. They look nicer. When I listened to the Adele song, her voice almost kind of seemed grainy, if that makes sense. I think it was just those headphones. These ones sounded fine. I like the blue ones better. They sound better altogether, in my opinion. They're also quite a bit lighter, I feel like, when they're on my head. Personally, I don't really like the look of them. Like, the blue kind of just gives me, like, Frozen vibes, but I do like the sound of them better than the... Yes. With the blue headphones, the bass is a little bit more defined, along with the voice. I just can't get over the graininess of those. And like, it may be the song or whatever, but it kind of fucked with me a little bit. Oh, sorry. The number one thing I would change about this guy is the comfort. And then second on the list, I'd probably say they could do a little bit more for the bass and the voice. Also, they're like weird. I don't like these things. What even are these? It makes me feel like I'm gonna break them if I hold them open too wide. The number one thing I'd change about these is probably the color, like the way they look. All together, these ones are definitely, in my opinion, better. They're lighter and they're easier to wear, and then the bass sounds good. You can clearly hear the voice, you know, all the riffs in the song. You can hear all the instruments, all that. And as with these ones, I didn't really hear as much instruments, where in the song I know that there's quite a bit of different instruments, but...
No, that's totally fair. Actually, those align with my findings.
Oh, cool.
Also.
I feel so special. Oh my God. No. I had the same findings as the fucking headphone freak.
Yeah. They're also a lot cheaper, too.
Really?
Yeah, those Mezes are like 2,000. Those are like 500.
In summary, better. I like these ones better. These ones aren't bad, but like I said, the just sound is not as good as these guys. 1 out of 10 real quick. 8. 5.5. And it has a long cord. Look at how long this cord is.
If your shit's far away, that's good.
My shit's not far away. I'm sitting right here. I don't need a cord that long. I could have got it wrapped around my neck. That's a choking hazard. You have a kid, you should know that.
Now, my own conclusion is that I like this headphone very much. This is going on my personal permanent recommendations list down in the description, so you'll always be able to find it until something better at this price comes along, because I just think it's that good. I think Focal just did an absolutely amazing job with this thing. Up soon, I will be doing a gear sale, so make sure you're staying tuned for that. I think that'll be next week. And I'm also gonna be doing the review of its open back counterpart soon. I think it's the Hadinus. If I'm mispronouncing that, please correct me in the comments. If this is any indication of the direction that Focal is going with their headphones, I'm extremely excited about what they can offer with an open back. All right, thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.